I was 16 years old and I was deep into self-hate and I had so much insecurity in my life and I was just suffocating. And so I tried to find the answers on the outside. I tried making money, being more attractive, more muscular, and I realized that these all were quick fixes. The real answer came when I read a book called The Power of Now. Some of my best friends told me, you're ugly, you're ugly. I took it super personally and I was like, fuck, that true? That fucked up my self-worth. In every way, shape, or form, we're all trying to escape ourselves. It becomes a top priority to look within yourself with no distraction and see what comes up.
What are some actionable steps people can take to be more present in everyday life?
The word presence means accepting what is. It's that simple. I was in Bristol my last year of uni. There was a teacher up front. She says, does
Any one of you guys create content?
And I was like, yeah. She asked me.
How many followers do you have?
I said 2 million. And she said,
What?
You should be the one teaching the class. And I was like, maybe, yeah.
How come everything went crashing down then?
I realized, why am I doing this? I'm not fully myself. I perhaps I didn't even know who I was. Jared, I was super fucking lost, man. My whole life I put on a mask. At what moment will you stop this insanity where you're draining yourself day after day after day being someone you're not? You can fill it as much as you want. You will never feel deeply fulfilled or happy.
There's holes in the bucket.
There's holes in the bucket.
How do you then balance mental well-being with ambition?
Very nice question.
Could you trace back that moment when you started having an interest in mental health and self-improvement?
So, I was 16 years old and I was deep into self-hate and I had so much insecurity in my life and I was just suffocating. And at that moment I was like, it's either I change or I'm just gonna fucking go crazy. So I started reading books, I started meditating, I started doing everything you can imagine on earth to try to find the answer to the question of how do you end the suffering? How do you find genuine peace, right? Which is what everyone is seeking. And so I tried to find the answers on the outside, right? I tried going to the gym, which is a great thing, by the way. I tried going to the gym. I tried other things outside of yourself. Tried making money, tried getting more success, tried being more attractive, more muscular. And I realized that these all were quick fixes. The real answer came when I read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And that book talked about that the voice in your mind is not really you. That voice is just an accumulation of all your past. And it's constantly, 90% of the time, repeating the same things. And so when I read that book, I had a glimpse of peace, right? I was like, what the fuck? I haven't felt that in my entire life. A glimpse of peace. And I was like, I want more, right? If I felt a bit, that means there's a way to get more. And so I made the present moment the number one focus of my life and did so many spiritual practices. And now I've cracked the code that not every day, but most days I feel a lot of peace.
It's great to hear, man. Would you say you had somewhat of a rough childhood from your point of view?
When I was 3 to 4 years old, I was a big troublemaker. So everyone around school knew me, pointed fingers that this is not the guy you should be around. And there's actually a funny story. I was such a troublemaker once. I was going to the bathroom. And so I was coming back from the bathroom and there's like a wall, right? And I was on the side of the wall and I was hearing my friend's mother. And she was telling him, I don't want you to hang out anymore with Fouad. He's a bad influence on you. You should ditch him. You should ditch him out of your life. He's going to lead you to nothing. And I heard that. And then I stepped and I walked right beside him. And I went into the class. And I don't forget these moments because they've marked me.
What I found curious is that you, as you said, you think you could qualify as a bully. And then you somehow turned out to be bullied later on in life. Could you walk us through that?
Yes. So I was a huge bully when I was younger. Okay, so the type of bully that you would see in the movies, where I would slap people if I didn't get what I want. I would shove people down the stairs if
like
they
the
pissed
American
me off.
bullies in the American movies.
Yeah, exactly. The ones everyone hates.
Called like Brad or Kevin.
the Chad, yeah.
Chat. Exactly. Playing American football.
Exactly. And so that was from the age of 4 till 10. And at 10 years old, I traveled to Canada. And there I was an outcast, right? I was at school. Everybody was speaking a French, an accent of a French that I didn't speak. I was more Paris French, and they were talking Québécois French, which means Canadian French. And I stood out, and everybody made fun of me because of that. And I remember vividly at 16, 17, I was bullied for having a big ass nose and going through puberty. And some of my best friends told me, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly. And I started I took it super personally, and I was like, fuck, is that true? Is that what I really am? And that fucked me up. That fucked up my self-worth. That's what fucked up my self-hate. But then, after a lot of podcasts with experts in psychology, they told me they triggered something that was already there, right? Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at peace. If someone comes to you and tries everything to piss you off, but within you're super at peace, I don't give a shit, right? You could say whatever you want to say. I'm at peace. But if from within I'm already triggered, and you come and you fucking anger me, then I'm gonna explode. That means there was already things within that were not working, and they just triggered those things. So they acted as angels. They acted as angels that were shedding light on what wasn't working from within. And looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened.
So you said there's already some limiting beliefs you had before then. What do you think they came from?
See, when you're a troublemaker, you constantly get punished. And so there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of hurt. And you're afraid of making mistakes for the fear of being hurt. So I think there was a limiting belief that I wasn't enough, or that I was never going to amount to anything, because that's what everybody told me. Yeah, something along these lines.
And by everyone, do you mean also your parents, your entourage, or it's mainly in school?
My parents, teachers, principals, everyone.
And how's your relationship with your parents now, if it's not too personal?
See, if I look back at it 6 to 12 months ago, it wasn't that great. With my dad especially, it wasn't that great. But now I've learned. We had a trip to Cyprus together, and we really bonded, and I got to love him just the way he is.
Are you a
Which is
single
hard-
child?
No, I have a brother, but it's a hard thing to say. Love just the way someone is, right? I had a podcast 2 days ago with Gary Douglas, and he said the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is judgment. The moment you start judging is the moment love doesn't exist anymore. And if you look at Christ, he was based on unconditional love, which means there's no condition attached to it. If there's any ifs after I love you if you do this, I love you if you're that, I love you if you're not this, then it's not love. It's judgment. And so now I'm cultivating more of that unconditional love, which I think is the purpose of why we're all here.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's great, man. What single moment fundamentally changed your relationship with yourself then? And how did it reshape your understanding of mental health?
What fundamental moment reshaped my understanding of myself? You know, the first thing that pops up, I was actually in the UK, just like you. And it was the last 3 months of university, my final year. And I woke up so stressed, so anxious. I had so many exams, so many things to do. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this shit anymore. But then I had made this commitment where I leave my phone in the studio, in the city center, and I go walking to the library. So I said, fuck it, I'm gonna just go. I just go. Just before entering the library, I saw a garden with a tree. So I said, let me meditate a bit, get back to normal, right? Because I was fucked up here. So I sit under the tree and I meditate, and the voice in the mind shuts down. Not a single noise, and the peace within becomes remarkable. And at that moment, I hear the voice of Michael A. Singer that says, open your heart. I don't know if it was intuition. I don't know if it was my higher self. I don't know what it was. It says, open your heart. So I opened my heart, and it felt like I was connected to everything. I was pure love, pure joy, pure bliss. And at that moment, that was the answer to the question. How do you stop the suffering? It was by being present. This is where the voice in the mind shuts down, by opening the heart. And so after that, I opened my eyes and I couldn't control my laugh, my smile. I was smiling, looking at strangers with pure love, people I don't even know their name, never met, just pure love, pure joy. There was no judgment. There was no judgment anymore. Remember what I said before, the opposite of love is judgment. So when there's no judgment, there's love. And so at that moment, there was no judgment. And I looked in front of me, everything felt new. Like you were born again,
You're
right?
just
Like
rediscovering everything in a different lens.
yeah, a certain aliveness with it. Feel alive, fresh. Like if you were just born. Look everything like a baby. And then I see an orange bird in front of me on the tree. He looks at me like that. And then he jumps. He then jumps on my knee. The orange bird jumps on my knee and sits there for 30 seconds. I look at him like that, looks at me like that. Like, what the fuck is happening, man? What the fuck is that? And yeah, at that moment I realized the difference between, I had a podcast yesterday with Gary Zukov. He's a top spiritual teacher, and he's appeared on the Oprah show 34 times.
Wow.
He has a book called The Seed of the Soul. And he talks about the little you, which is the ego, that voice in your head that's constantly talking, and the big you, the soul, which is in your heart. And the soul is pure bliss. That's what I felt at that moment.
So you mentioned, meditation, being present, reading. What are some actionable steps people can take to be more present in everyday life?
Cultivating the awareness, which means when there's a thought, to be aware of it, even if it's a positive or a negative thought, to be aware of it. The more you cultivate that awareness and the present, which means you don't judge. Okay, there's that voice, there's those annoying, just let it be. And the more you're present, which means you accept what is. The word presence means accepting what is. It's that simple. Accepting what is. Whenever you feel anxious, whenever you feel depressed, it means you're not accepting what is. Period. That's true. Whenever you feel the most bliss, which means you accept what is. What does it mean to accept what is? It means you're not judging. It means you're okay with whatever is.
What's worrying is that, especially this generation, they're just not this present anymore, because either they're just, stressing too much about the future, or, regretting so much about the past. And if they're not regretting about the past or stressing about the future, they're glued onto their phones and they're not even, enjoying the present moment, because we're just so conditioned to, as soon as there's this little, moment of boredom, or you go wait for the train, or, you're not doing anything, it's become like an automation just to pick up your phone or to pick up your cigarettes and just fill the void, and you're just not this present anymore. And I find it's very scary. It's very scary. Because you mentioned meditation, what types of meditation do you do? Do you do breath work? Do you do guided meditation? Do you do, some people actually walk as a form of meditation?
before I answer that, I love the point you made about filling the void. I think I was listening to a podcast of Michael A. Singer a few days ago, and in every way, shape, or form, we're all trying to escape ourselves, right? Everyone has a way. For example, me, my way of escaping myself, whenever I feel overwhelmed, I start working. I start eating junk, like chocolate and sugar and comfort foods. And I've recently allowed more of those feelings to be. The feelings that you're running away, the dark, dark, dark feelings that you're running away from, I've allowed them to be, because these are the suppressed emotions that are literally running your life. You don't realize it, but they're running your life. For example, I'll give you an example so people can understand. Whenever I felt not okay within, I tried to get the attention of this girl that I liked. Whenever she gave me that attention, I felt a glimpse of being okay, and then I fell back into the cycle. I tried everything to get her attention, to get a glimpse, to feel a certain sense of love or joy or satisfaction, which is all fleeting, right? The thing is, until you deal, and there's a beautiful monk that's called, beautiful teachings, man, called Cory Muscara on Instagram. If you don't follow him, please follow him. Like
What's his name?
Cory Muscara. And so Cory says, your life is literally run. So everything is run based on those things which you are not dealing with, right? If you have a deep feeling of unworthiness or a deep feeling of shame, then your life is literally run by that. You will try to compensate by potentially being more successful or by being a complete loser, putting yourself down. You will then, every action will stem from that insecurity within. So it becomes a top priority to look within yourself with no distraction and see what comes up when you're not trying to fill the void. And then you'll realize, okay, there's that feeling. It's like I felt it very powerfully the past few weeks. Very strong feelings. But the more you allow it to be, and you accept it with love and awareness, without condemning, without saying, fuck, why do I feel this? I shouldn't feel this. I should feel positive. Which is sometimes things that I do, right?
Yeah.
When you do that, it fades. And you fall back to the soul, which is ever expanding love.
I completely agree. And it's because my dad has always said that, you gotta enjoy boredom and try and, understand it. Because that's when all the clutter leaves your brain and you can actually think inwards and see inwards. And that's when your creativity comes in, and that's how ideas come about. Because if you're just always stimulating your brain constantly, it just doesn't have the room to think. And the only time it has room to think is when you're sleeping, and then while you're sleeping, so you can't really do much. I completely agree with you. To go back to meditation then, what practices of meditation have you tried yourself, and which ones have been the best for you? Where you've seen the most results?
So I've been meditating for the past 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
And I've tried multiple meditation approaches. I've tried DMT breathwork. I've tried Wim Hof. I've tried Vipassana meditation, TM. Every possible meditation you could possibly imagine. And I think it depends on which phase you're at. There's different meditations for different phases. Beginners shouldn't start with pranayama. It's a heightened level, so you go about it depending on your levels.
Okay.
I think the first step is awareness, so body scan. So you close your eyes, and I do that every morning. You feel where there's tension, right? Wherever there's tension, be aware of it. Relax and let go. Relax, let go in the present moment.
Do you do it standing up or sitting down or lying down?
You can do it wherever you want. You can do it sitting down. I'll tell you my routine is I wake up, I make my bed, I get super cold water, I stand in the sun and I do the body scan. And then after the body scan, I sit in the meditation and I do a specific meditation my guru gave me. I like to call it my guru, Fouad. I don't know if he is, but he helps me a lot. And it's one where you become fully present. It's basically it's super simple. Become fully present, accept what is, and open your heart and center it on a spiritual symbol, whether that's Jesus, whether that's Ramdas, whether that's the Buddha, whatever you want. Center it in your heart, and you will feel more and more the presence of that spiritual symbol or God. And at the end of the day, they're all different costumes from the same thing.
I love the way you said that you start your day with waking up, taking
I like
cold glass of water, doing your bed. Because a lot of people would make fun of the fact, like, oh, making your beds. It's like the same way, like the CEO morning routine was cringe like a few years ago. It's people just don't realize the impact, and I say it basically every episode where we just discuss morning habits and morning routines. How just starting your day with just a glass of water, meditation, and just having sunlight exposure. The first few minutes, hour of your day, without any screens, without any distractions, without anything. You basically just started your day right, and the odds of it going to shit are pretty low, because now you're just in this state of, as you said, awareness. You just feel good about it, because if you just wake up groggy, overslept or not slept enough, go straight onto your phone for like 30 minutes and get up, and then you go eat your breakfast. It's just it's not great. And you gotta give time for your brain to actually wake up. It's like starting a car in the cold. It's hard. You gotta let it time to wake up before hitting it with a shit ton of dopamine in its face. So I love that you do that in your mornings. Well, what else do you do in your morning then? So you wake up, drink, sun exposure, meditation. What follows that?
So you want a full detailed step by step, or you want long story short? Okay. So I wake up around 6 to 7 a.m.
Okay.
First thing I do is I do my affirmations on the new version of myself.
Okay.
Second thing, I make my bed. I drink cold ass water in the sun. I do the body scan, meditation, visualization. I start my deep work for 4 to 5 hours.
Okay.
After that,
So fasted, right? You haven't eaten anything yet. Okay.
fasted.
Just water.
Fasted is the best shit ever.
I agree.
If you eat breakfast, your level of focus and your level of efficiency and effectiveness when you work drastically plummets.
Especially if you eat like sugar-packed cereals or something very, very sweet straight in the morning. It's fucking
Bread.
or yeah, anything carb-loaded, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And then after my deep work, I go to the gym. I do what I call an energy routine, which means I do a workout that brings me energy, like HIIT workouts or something with high intensity. And then I eat. I'm doing now carnivore more, leaning towards it. Not fully doing it, but
Okay.
leaning towards it.
So it's something between keto and carnivore.
Yep.
Okay. Amazing. I want to go back to go back. We haven't really talked about it yet. Your channel. So you blew up on TikTok in, what was it, 2021, 2022? Yeah, you
Yep.
reached over 2 million subscribers, followers on TikTok. And then you, let's say, vanished for over 460 days. What happened, man? Why leave everything behind? And even TikTok, do you still continue TikTok, or is the account still nothing going on? Okay. So what was that decision, if any, behind that?
I'm not gonna answer.
And by the way, and walk us through the actual creation of that TikTok account and why you started that in the first place.
So which one do you want me to answer first? Why I started or why I stopped?
Yeah, true. Why you started, and we can go into why you stopped.
Okay. So I actually started. I was scrolling through TikTok in 2020 during the pandemic, and I see this guy inspires the bro. He had a video like an inspiring message, emotional music, and I was like, "Fuck, this guy inspired the shit out of me." And then I look, and I'm like, and he inspired the shit out of a million people too. This is insane. And so I said, you know what? Fuck it. I've never tried that. Let me try something new. And so I pick up my mom's camera. I go in the roof of my house and I film a video. And it was called "Don't Waste Your Potential" or something along these lines. I was very angry in the video, just motivational guy. And I posted my first video all excited and it got nothing. Zero. It got like 200 views. Pretty much all of them, my friends making fun of me and mocking me for doing that. But I had a gut feeling that there was something there. So I just kept going. I kept showing up again and again, and I got to a point where I was posting 20, 30 videos in a day, one summer. But then I realized, fuck, I'm doing something wrong. This is shit is not working. It's not about quantity. And so I started researching how to go viral. I started researching how to persuade, how to use psychology, right? For the greater good, not for manipulation of bullshit. For genuinely, convincing people to watch on something that could really change your life. And it all changed on the 14th of February 2022 or 21. I was coming back from my grandma's funeral. And the funeral made me aware that, this is also going to be me one day. Right? And it's either now or never. You either take action or you're not. So I took big sheets of white paper and I wrote the goal, inspire a million people. And I just went with it. And things just aligned. The universe just aligned and things just flowed. And I went from 8,000 to 1 million followers in 2 months.
That's insane. So how come everything went crashing down then?
How did I stop, you mean? I'm not going to answer you the surface level answer. I'm going to dig deep again.
Please.
I'm going to tell you the surface level answer, then we'll dig deep, okay? The surface level answer is I was burnt out. I was not enjoying the style of content I was doing, not the topics, the style.
Okay.
It felt inauthentic to me.
Okay.
These
Just can you specify the style for those that don't know your content or haven't come across it? Because I'm sure most of Gen Z have seen your content at some point without realizing it. Because when I rediscovered your stuff like a few months back, I looked back to your TikTok. I was like, yeah, I recognize this dude. I must have seen him a few times when I was scrolling about. So what was your style exactly, and why did you think it was a good idea to do that?
The style is actually me talking to myself. And it's basically the conversation, just like this podcast that we're having, but between two people that are contradictory usually.
Two different roles.
One usually seeks answers and has a problem. One usually has the answer and gives the solution. And so I found that style works, and people liked it, and I enjoyed it, so I just went with it.
And you found it was so inauthentic.
So at the end, after doing it for like over 100 or something videos, I realized that I'm not fully myself. But then I dig deeper, and I realized it's because I perhaps I didn't even know who I was. Deep down. I was perhaps everything I thought I was, but that wasn't me. That was just a mask that I put on. That was just what I was trying to portray to other people to conceal shame, to avoid getting hurt. I love personal development, but that style wasn't me anymore. I was...
Well, the form of delivering that kind of topic and conversation wasn't matching your vibe. And when did that realization hit then? Was it when you posted one last video and you just realized, what the fuck am I doing? Or was there an external factor that made you, introspectively look at what you were doing?
So we were once, it's a funny story, but we were once, and I was in Bristol, the University of Bristol, my last year of uni, and we were in a big fucking hall, huge hall. And there was a teacher up front that was teaching digital marketing. She was talking about making content and stuff. And she says, does any one of you guys in this entire class create content? And I was like, should I let my ego speak, or should I just just keep it, just keep it behind the scenes? I don't know what came over me. The first thought was like, fuck, say what you have. And so Is that?
Yeah, I've got 2 million subscribers. That's me. Yeah, yeah.
So listen. No, that's not how I said it. So I put my hands up, and I was like, yeah, I do. I create content. And she asked me, how many followers do you have? And I don't like to say, because people start treating you weird, differently and stuff. I don't like that. And so she asked me, how many followers do you have? I said a lot. I have a couple. No, I didn't say a lot. I said a couple. I have a good amount. And she was like, how much? Then there's the entire class behind me. I said, 2 million. Then she said, what? I said, yeah, 2 million. I said it humbly, but I didn't say it with an ego. Like, yeah, I got 2 million, man.
What you gonna do?
What you gonna do?
I should be teaching this class.
Then she actually said that. She said, you should be the one teaching the class. And I was like, maybe, yeah. Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
But she didn't believe me at first. She thought I was joking. But then she checked my account and stuff, and after that day she treated me differently.
Of course.
She started treating me super differently, like, yeah.
So that's when you realized that you're doing something wrong, or?
No, but then everyone in the university started knowing that I made content. A few people knew, because they told me that they saw my stuff. And a couple people pointed it out, and I was like, is that really me? Why am I doing this? Is it just to... Because I started this with a pure intention, right? I genuinely wanted to inspire people, okay? But then once you get into the content game, and every creator can tell you this, you start becoming obsessed with the numbers, with the views, with the likes, and you get to a point where it fucks up your mind. Literally fucks up your mind. You can talk to any creator, they'll tell you this. And at that point I was like, fuck, why am I doing this? Right? Is it just because it's getting views? But why am I doing this? And it felt super inauthentic. I was burnt out. I was like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. So I stopped.
Do you regret this decision or not today?
In my opinion, regret, I don't really regret. I don't live in the past. Do I wish someone would have guided me to go about it where I don't quit cold turkey? Maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you maybe, somehow wish you, did differently than actually, quitting completely? Maybe pivoting because it's still 2 million, followers. You could pivot the whole, maybe a few, maybe even half would leave, but you still have 1 million, and then continue your new branch of self-improvement there. Is that something you still think about today? Thinking I could
yeah, sure,
extrapolate my podcast platform now onto TikTok?
Of course. And that's why I started the podcast. I was Jared, I was super fucking lost, man. After I stopped Mentally Great, I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life now? Right? This was my identity for the past 2 years. And I stopped, and I was confused, and I started trying different styles of content, and it was really interesting. Like, I ran experiments in the UK where I took big signs, and I wrote questions and started talking to strangers, and I broke out. There's Jordan Peterson that talks about that exposure therapy, where you expose yourself to the thing you fear most. So I took big signs, and I stood in the fucking busiest street in Bristol, and thousands of people were walking by, and I was
What some examples of signs would you put up?
Do you what does the world need now? Yeah, what does the world need now? What's your best advice? I would give out money for advice, £10. I once gave out like £200 worth of advice.
That's crazy.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, it was nice, but I love making content now in a more authentic way. Where I'm, for example, the podcast is a huge passion of mine. We're on episode, I think you're on episode 30. I'm on episode 41. Yesterday was
Yeah.
episode 41.
Yeah, I'd be at episode, I don't know, like 50 by now if I stuck to doing it every week. But I took a break, which I shouldn't have, which I sort of regret, but it is what it is, during the holidays, because I was traveling a lot. I had weddings, family vacation. I had to, I just come out of my first year of uni and all my exams, so I just had to take a step back. And then 1 week turned into a month into 2 months, then 2 months to 3 months. So I took a big gap out. So it sort of stagnated everything up, but I don't really regret it that much because I had to take the break, and now I'm back in it, better than ever. So I guess it's just meant to be. What I found interesting though is that you say it wasn't authentic, but the whole concept of the content you're creating was just taking on different roles to teach and give advice. Do you see how that sort of not that contradicts itself, but because how could have you seen yourself do it differently while being authentic but keeping the same style of content? Do you think it would have been possible or not?
Maybe. You know what? If you look at some of my videos, there was some video where I did the same style and it was super authentic. Like if you look at the video, there's one where I talked about laziness. I was really talking just like I'm talking to you now. But there's a lot of videos where I'm a completely different, emphasized version of myself.
Stuff that works on TikTok, the whole very captivating, and that's not you.
Yeah, exactly. And you get to a point where you're like, man, fuck, bro, let me just be myself, man, Why am I putting all this entire action? And by the way, this is a reflection of what most people go through too. This is not just content. My whole life I put on a mask, which was the same thing. And we all put on masks to try to avoid being hurt, to conceal shame, to try to make people like us. Right? Don't we all do that, Jared? To some extent?
To some extent, you try and put your best foot forward.
Yeah, and so the question becomes, at what moment will you stop this insanity where you're draining yourself day after day after day, being someone you're not? Right? I lived my whole life like that. This wasn't just the content. The content was kind of an emphasis that enough of fucking putting on a mask. Just be yourself, period. Be your most vulnerable, walk naked. I don't mean it literally. I mean, what I mean is, there's, these past 2 years, I've started to love Tim Ferriss. I love his strategic thinking. Yeah, I love his strategic thinking. Week. Yeah, 4-hour work week. I love his way of thinking.
He's got sorry.
yeah, of course. Yeah. And he's got a beautiful way that's so liberating of thinking, right? And he led me to Neil Gaiman.
Okay.
Neil Gaiman and Gaiman, and he had a Harvard opening speech, and he said, the moment you walk naked and you expose a bit too much of your heart and your soul and what you're feeling inside, is the moment you might be starting to do it right. And I think so many people are walking with 100 layers of clothes, and that breaks all connection. Like, Jared, if I was sitting in front of you and I was like this, and I was like, Jared, I am the owner of Mentally Great. I have 2 million followers. You should respect me. You should love me. I am the most... It broke all connection between me and you.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, between every other human. So here, you should learn to embrace your soul. Your soul is already complete. It doesn't need all this futile game, which is sometimes necessary. You need to play the game to realize that it's not worth playing the game. But the moment you touch your soul and you feel the aliveness, you open your heart, you realize that you are already enough. You don't need to do all this shit.
It is crazy the way that you said that people saw you differently or treated you differently having 2 million followers on TikTok. Which in some way does sort of make sense, because if you came about, meeting some random guy or some random guys in your school, and if you make the analogy of instead of social media, he just knows a lot of people, or not a lot of people know him, and he's part of a big community and everybody follows him. Obviously, your perception of that guy is going to change, but it shouldn't change the way you treat him.
Yep.
Because, we're all human in the end, So...
You know something really interesting?
Tell me.
Yesterday, I was having before yesterday, I had a podcast with Gary Douglas, and he's all about your point of view and how that affects your entire life. And the thing is, your point of view affects everything. It's your paradigm, it's your beliefs, it's a culmination of everything. The way you see the world is basically the way you're programmed. So the moment your point of view changes, you see the world differently. There's a beautiful quote that says, the moment you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The moment you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Let me give you an example. If I look back at the moment where I was bullied, in the moment where it happened, I was so pissed, I was so angry, I was so in a victim mentality. Why the fuck is this happening to me? Looking back at it a few years later, with a different perspective, I'm like, this is the best shit that ever happened in my life. Without it, I wouldn't have become obsessed with self-development. Without it, I wouldn't have healed so many parts of me. Without it, I would have never found peace. I'm a much happier person because of it. See the difference in perspective? And so here's the same thing. When a person's perspective changes on you, then they will automatically treat you differently. It's not something conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're very aware, which is different.
No, that's very beautiful, man. That's great. So it begs the question after all conversation, it's how do you then balance mental health or mental well-being with ambition?
Very nice question.
Where do you draw the line, Fouad?
First, I had a guest called Dr. Maria E. Nemeth. She's the author of The Energy of Money, episode 39, coming out this week. And she said, success is doing what you said you would do consistently with clarity, focus, ease, and grace. The 4 principles are really powerful and they build upon each other. Clarity, focus, ease, and grace. First, you need clarity, right? What are your values? Or something what? Your authentic values. You need to really dig deep. And she had an exercise where you basically look at 3 people you really admire. And ask yourself, why do I actually admire them? What is it about them that I admire? Then note down their values for number 1, number 2, number 3. Find the key points. And this is what you really value in yourself, what you would like to value. These are your values. This is the foundation. Next step, you want to see your life intentions, what she calls your life intentions, which are the things, you want to raise some things that you really want to do. To be financially independent, to be happy, genuinely happy, to be a clear thinker, to be, to communicate well, whatever. Then you want to pick the one that excites you, 1 or 2, that excites you most. Excitement is a very powerful sign from the soul that this is in alignment with your soul's purpose. This is what will fulfill you the most. And yesterday's guest was Gary Zunkov. And Gary talks about authentic power, which means aligning your personality. What I talked about before, the little you with the big you, your soul. The moment there's alignment between the two is the moment where you start flowing with life. It's the moment where grace happens, which means the serendipity, the law of attraction, the manifestation, everything starts flowing with ease So I think this is a much more healthier way to go about life, where you have presence, you have a goal, a vision in the future, but you live it in the present. And you accomplish every step in the present, step by step, and you enjoy every step, and you're going to get there. It's like a staircase.
What I find interesting is that you put an emphasis on genuine or genuinely happy. Why so? Have you ever been happy but deep down your aren't? Well, what qualifies as genuinely happy? Well, genuine happiness and just happiness by itself.
So there's two types of happiness. The first one is shallow happiness. The second
Okay.
one is deep happiness. And this is a concept by Mingyur Rinpoche. He's a monk.
I think I
A
saw
monk,
that.
like,
I think I saw that episode of you.
yeah, so he's a monk, and it just his smile.
I think
Just
that
you
was
could-
that was the first question you asked him. Like, what is happiness?
Yeah,
Or what is suffering? One or two.
yeah, because there's two types of happiness. There's a shallow happiness, which are usually things that in the moment make you feel that you do, and that give you a short glimpse of happiness, but then you fall back to suffering.
It's like
This is not happiness.
It's like instant versus long-term gratification.
Yes, so here, it's like eating a hamburger or or buying a new car or whatever. It's gonna wear off. It's an empty bag, right? You can fill it as much as you want. You will never feel deeply fulfilled or happy because
There's holes in the bucket.
there's holes in the bucket. The second type is actually deep happiness. This is the happiness that comes from what the Buddha talks about, which is a place the soul, the happiness from your soul, the happiness that has no condition, that has no judgment, like we said at the beginning. The happiness with what is. The more you accept the present, the more you will feel it. And it's the most beautiful feeling ever. There's nothing that compares to it. Nothing, nothing, nothing.
I guess you'll know when you reach that point, right?
You'll have to suffer enough with the shallow happiness to realize that it's bullshit. It's not like, when I say that, I don't mean to say don't do all those things. Do them. But come to a point where you realize that this is not the point. These are not the things that will lead you to the deepest happiness within your heart. Be open to the fact that you might be wrong. Be open to the fact that there might be a better way.
Fouad, what motivates you to advocate for mental health?
My story, the before in my life where I was just fucked up and I was so insecure, so unhappy with myself, and so much self-hate, and that entire negativity spilled and made other people suffer and made life just a fucking nightmare. And for me, heaven and hell are just metaphors. Heaven and hell. Hell is a life lived with the ego, the middle you, where you just do everything in shallow happiness, out of fear, out of that mask we talked about. And deep happy, and what was I saying?
You took a hell, heaven, how they're metaphors.
Yeah.
And you're saying that, yeah.
And heaven is a life lived out of the big you, the soul, the present
Okay.
moment, non-judgment.
So you gotta
you'll
detach
realize-
yourself from your ego.
Yeah, you gotta. The more you live aligned with your big you, the soul, you will not want to stop because it's the most beautiful feeling that you can ever experience.
And beyond that, what else pushes you to, wake up every day and do these episodes? Beyond, your own sufferance back then.
It's I get every week to sit down with the experts, have genuine conversations about things that I need to improve, right? And they have decades, 50 years of experience, and they could help me out in an hour. And for me, this is extremely useful. Number two, it's extremely satisfying. I fucking love this shit. And third of all, I get to share it with people. It's the fucking best shit ever. Well, why am I not gonna do it? You know?
That's very true. That's very true. And how important is community support in mental health, and how do you foster it?
What do you mean specifically by community support?
How your environment, how your friends, family, entourage.
It's look, the external does impact. Let's not sit here and lie to each other. But if from within you are already whole and you live in that wholeness, nothing outside of you can impact you. I'm surrounded by, my mom is one of the most negative people I know, and I love her to death, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. She judges everything I do, criticizes everything I do, always wants me to do stuff her way. And for a long time I rebelled. And I thought, why me, God? Why put me with a person that keeps fucking putting negative energy into everything I do? But then I shifted my perspective. I realized, holy shit, it's actually the opposite. My mom has been the biggest blessing that pushed me within even more. It pushed me to be even more present,
She's
more
doing
loving.
it out of love. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a test. When you ask God for strength, He gives you an opportunity to be strong. When you ask God for patience, He doesn't give you patience. He gives you a place where you can practice patience, like in traffic. When you ask God for love, He's not going to give you love. He's going to give you an opportunity that makes you dig into yourself and accept yourself more. And usually these are hard things. These are not things that are easy. These are things where you will really, really, really have to face all the darkness within you that you're able to let go. And when you let go, there's love.
Before we finish off, I wanted to dive a bit into football. So you're a big football player. How come you stopped? And what did you find in football that completed you so much back then? And do you still play now?
So football has been a huge chapter in my life. I was obsessed for 10 years, from the age of 10 till 21, of becoming a pro. That was my only ambition. Everything I did was based on that. When people would come to talk to me, like friends, they wouldn't say, how are you, Aji or Fouad? They would say, how's football? So it was that big of an identity for me. I came to a point in the UK where I was reading a book called Born for This. And the book talked about how some people have a talent for certain things and some others don't. And how if we were all doing the same shit and we were talented at the same shit, then we wouldn't be unique in our own way. We wouldn't complement each other like nature. If you look at nature...
Yeah, if we're all extraordinary, then we're all ordinary.
Yeah, if we all
It
did
just
the same
rises
thing.
Yeah.
If we're all, for example, Jared, we all work in a coffee shop as waiters, then can we survive? No. It's because we're all doing different things that complement each other. Like nature, where the bird complements the worm complements the bird complements the snake. Everything's in
harmony, in
in
cycles.
harmony. You have to realize what are your talents. And I worked really fucking hard. 11 years of not, I play football. No, literally 3 hours of training a day for years. And I realized at that moment, what if my talents are somewhere else? And I've been pushing in the wrong place. And that was a very hard truth to face. Right? Imagine your entire life, 11 years dedicated to this. And coming to ask yourself the question, what if I was talented at something else and can flourish somewhere else? And so, at that moment, I made a pact with myself. I said, for 2 weeks, I'm not going to touch a ball. I'm not going to train. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to do anything related to football for 2 weeks. And I put myself this decision. If I feel compelled to come back, I'm going to come back. And if I feel like it was just a habit and something that I did, but I don't feel a certain pull towards it, I'm going to stop and try something new. And so that's what I did. And that's
how you came to
actually...
stop.
And that's actually how I came to start Mentally Great. And that's how Mentally Great created that impact.
There you go. It's funny, I think of that all the time. Like, you couldn't know, but you could have been, like, I'm thinking of like my entourage. Siska could have been the next Messi if, he had any interest in football and started playing at a young age. He might have been the greatest football player ever, but we'll never know because he never tried it out. And that's for everything. That's why I encourage people to really just try everything. Just try different sports, different hobbies, different occupations. Just try stuff. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you might find the calling that you've been looking for all this time, the thing that actually calls you, and you're like, this is me, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's the same with food. Like, I'm the first guy in the restaurant to pick something randomly, because there's always friends that's always take the same stuff. Like, every time we go to the restaurant, it's always like the same burger all the time. I'm like, bro, there might be something in this menu that's like 10 times better than that burger, but you've never tried it, you'll never know. And yes, maybe you'll try something, it's maybe, as good as the burger, maybe even not as good, but at least you tried something, and you're diversifying your palette, your portfolio of what is good. So that's why I just go to a restaurant, I just close my eyes, just drag my finger. Oh, okay, try that. And at some point I just fell on this beauty. I was like, my God, it's some kind of risotto. I was like, this is bliss. This is amazing. And if I just stuck to my carbonara all the time, I would never encounter it.
You know what? I'm going to do that today. I'm going to have lunch now. I'm going to actually do what you said. I'm going to close my eyes and do it.
Exactly. Unless if it actually does fall on something you actually hate, obviously don't eat it. Don't poison. Oh man, I'm going to have to eat it now. Don't waste your money. But I mean, I think it's more of an analogy than anything else, but it is a good challenge. It's something I do enjoy doing from time to time. But again, you can completely just extrapolate that to life and just try stuff. I mean, life is short. You never know where you could have been without trying. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Just stay where you are, and at least you tried. And you can't you can't kick yourself down for trying when you could have been that good in something else. So yeah, I love the way you brought that up.
Tim Ferriss says, before starting his podcast, which is one of the top podcasts in the world.
I love it.
Yeah, top 10. And before the Tim Ferriss show, before starting his podcast, he said, I'm going to just run this as an experiment for 6 episodes. That's it, with friends. And now he has more than I think 1,000 podcasts or some shit, some crazy statistic with 1 billion streams.
I know.
And he just started
crazy.
When you remove the friction from starting, right? And you just make it as easy as possible to start. Just as an experiment, just for fun, right? Without too many big expectations.
Yeah. And you didn't have to quit everything to start that thing. Just try it on the side. It won't take that much of your time. And again, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What I find it very interesting about the case with Tim Ferriss is that, I'm not sure if it was him, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. He actually started podcasting thinking that it was too late in the game. And we're talking, he started that in 2014 or 16, when no one even knew what podcasting was.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, I think it's too late. You know what, I'll try it out. And turns out he's one of the pioneers of what podcasting is today. It's it goes back to, it's never too late, right? It's never ever too, well, okay, there's some exceptions, right? There's some exceptions.
Yeah, if your grandma wants to start playing in the Premier League, then there's an exception.
Exactly. Exactly. I said there's some exceptions, but again, it's just to really give the bigger picture of, try something and don't ever think it's too late. And worst case, again, if it's too late, it goes back to worst case, it doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Worst case, it's with everything. Worst case, you make it, or worst case, you learn from it. So it's not even a worst case, it's a win-win every situation.
There's no worst case. It's either you win or you learn.
Exactly.
When you have that perspective, then it makes it so easier to try things, right? The podcast hasn't made me literally $0. Yet, I've done 41 episodes, I've invested money in every single one, and it's been the most fulfilling, most glowing experience in terms of self-development in my entire life. More than any book I've ever read.
I couldn't agree more. Fouad, what future projects do you have in mind for promoting, mental health and your brand?
So the podcast is my main thing, to be honest. So if you want to be a happier, high performer, then it's called the Rich Inside Podcast. You can check it out on all platforms at Rich Inside Podcast every Sunday. And And yeah, if you feel compelled, if you like what we talked about, check it out. And Jared, I respect what you're doing, man. I respect what you're doing. I like your energy.
I appreciate it, man. I really, again, I've seen you for a while now, and having you on the show is honestly a blessing. So I want to thank you for taking the time for coming on. And I really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned a lot.
My pleasure, my friend.